Hello and welcome to another edition of ProtoMet's First Impressions, where I give my thoughts on the first episode of any new tokusatsu show. And today I'll be taking a look at the first episode of Project Red's Chou Uchuu Keiji Gavan Infinity, or Super Space Sheriff Gavan Infinity. Is this part of the Metal Heroes series, or is Project Red its own separate series? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that Project Red is just a series of reboots of old tokusatsu franchises, at least temporarily. This is definitely replacing Super Sentai for the time being, now that that's finished. Anyway, Gavan Infinity starts with an epic battle in space with transforming spaceships. And it turns out to all be some sort of premonition that some guy is having. Meanwhile, on Earth, in the 21st century, aliens are living among humans, but some of them are criminals that are being hunted down by the space police. Not those space police, some other space police. No, not those space police. The other space... There are too many space police in tokusatsu. Even just within Toei. There's like 2 at least. That's too many. That's gotta have some like jurisdiction issues at some point down the line. Not that it really matters for this particular series, because there is an explanation for why the various space cop agencies don't step on each other's toes, which I'll get to, but we get introduced to a criminal, apparently an alien, though he looks very much human. This early on, the two of the major villains that are introduced, and they're exclusive to this episode, are human. I mean, they could be aliens, but they definitely look human. Like, the show does establish that this Earth has a variety of aliens living on it, some of which actually have, more alien features, but others are just humans with face paint. Basically. Which kind of got me worried that all the villains of this show were just gonna be human. Anyway, this criminal is being pursued by 2 cops, one played by a regular guy, another played by a suit actor in a costume, playing what I can only assume is a robot. I think it's a robot. It's a buddy cop thing going on here. Neither of these characters are the main protagonist. Instead, the criminal they're trying to pursue manages to escape from them using a battery-like device called an emo gear, which are the main collectible for this show, as established pretty quickly. Anyway, the criminal manages to get away from the 2 cops, and he runs across another guy who is also a cop, and given all the marketing, we can basically tell that this guy is going to be the Red Gavan of this series. Gavan Infinity. And then the criminal's gang shows up, and the criminal basically tells them that if they kick this cop's ass, they'll get a lot of money. So this cop kicks all their asses. Partway through the fight, he does transform into the Red Gavan form. So it's not much of a spoiler that I'm saying that he's the Red Gavan, because the show establishes that pretty early on. Anyway, he manages to stop the criminals and confiscate the emo gear and allow the Earth space cops to take the guy in. Also, it's established that this guy works in the documentation division, which, according to narration, a lot of other departments in the Space Police think that the documentation division is a joke. But that's only because they don't actually know what they're really up to, which is that they are a secret, top secret, or branch of the space police who deal with the multiverse. So yeah, we got a multiverse story at a time when at least Westerners are starting to get tired of multiverse stories. I wonder if that was intentional. The last season, the last show in this time slot technically had a multiverse, but it was like a low-key multiverse, and hopefully they handle this multiverse better, but this is basically the explanation for why there can be multiple space polices. But anyway, while they're, I guess, purifying the email gear that was confiscated from the one cop, they get a message from the director, the guy who had the premonition at the beginning of the episode, who tells them that there's a disturbance and a dark emo energy. It's energy derived from emotions, but they're getting a dark energy reaction from one of the various Earths in the multiverse. So they detach from the regular space police space station and jet off to another dimension. Where, as it turns out, this one guy who basically is leading a terrorist organization, is trying to usurp the government for the sake of everyone's happinesses, despite protests from his sister. His sister gets injured in the ensuing riot, and Gavin Infinity ends up fighting him and defeating him. But during the fight, the bad guy's emo gear goes into overload and turns into a monster. And I was thankfully glad that showed up, because I was kind of worried that this was just going to be a Kaiketsu Zubat situation, which I don't hate that show, but when you watch a whole bunch of other tokusatsu shows with guys in costumes, and then you switch over to a guy in a costume beating up just regular guys, it kind of feels lackluster. And thankfully, that's not going to be the case with this show. Now that they've established that these monsters called Emons are a thing from, I guess, overuse of the emo gears, or potentially overloading them with negative emotions, they will turn into monsters. But yeah, Gavin Infinity defeats the monster and is confronted by, I guess, the guy in charge of this Earth's police force or government or something. And turns out he's also a Gavin, a blue Gavin called Gavin Bushido. And presumably they're going to fight, because the episode ends. I can definitely say that this is falling a bit more in line with the Super Sentai series, with there being multiple heroes that are color-coded. Like, already with the marketing, we already know that there's going to be a yellow one, and the opening of this episode also reveals a purple one and some other kind of copper-looking one. Maybe bronze, I don't know. It was hard to really make out, even when I paused it to get a look. But, so yeah, we already established that there are going to be at least 5 Gavins in this show, unless they just don't bring them up ever again, which is entirely possible. I'm going to assume, and again, I'm just assuming, that all these various colored Gavins are going to come together to form a multiverse team to police emo gear crimes across the multiverse. Yeah, it's definitely feeling a bit closer to Super Sentai than past Metal Hero shows, especially the Space Sheriff trilogy. despite there being a mention to Maku space, I was kind of disappointed that this episode didn't have any of the more outlandish, special effects heavy, otherworldly fight sequences that pretty much every episode of the Space Sheriff trilogy had, which really helped us set those shows apart, and instead this just has Space Sheriffs. I could be wrong. Maybe future episodes will actually properly introduce the Maku space and we'll get heavy special effects fight scenes, which I'm really hoping for. But I can understand if they don't due to budgetary constraints. But if they don't, then I'll be pretty disappointed. Because that was one of the cool things about the Space Sheriff trilogy. You get these somewhat surreal fight sequences. Like, I recall a couple episodes that were nothing but surreal plot lines. Just kind of going from place to place with a little sense of continuity. And that was what it was supposed to be conveying. And I'm kind of hoping we get at least one episode of that in this series, but I'm kind of expecting this to be basically just Super Sentai in all but name. I mean, we already know that they've got transforming spaceships that at the very least transform from humanoid forms into spaceship forms, so not that that's not without precedent in even the Space Sheriff trilogy. All three of those had transforming spaceships. Though I think only one of them actually had anything close to a humanoid form. So, again, this is stuff that it does have elements that aren't without precedent in the Space Sheriff trilogy, but the vibe I'm getting is closer to Sentai and closer to modern Sentai and Rider, which I guess makes sense since this is the outright replacement of Super Sentai. I'm certainly gonna keep watching to see if it does any good, and I'm not disappointed right now. I'm just trying to temper my expectations given how bad the last season of Super Sentai was. I'm coming out right out and saying it. Gozujiro sucked. But if you're interested in checking out Chou Uchuu Keiji Gavan Infinity, keep gotta remember that it's a 5-word show title. Yeah, go check it out. And until next time, I'm ProtoMet. See ya.